Greetings, colleagues at North Caucasus Federal University. Hello from the University of Winnipeg in Manitoba, Canada. My name is Dr. Leсли Trudel, and I am the Associate Dean here at the Faculty of Education at the University of Winnipeg. The last time that I spoke with you, I was sharing about the change process in schools as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the pandemic has brought about much change and much stress. In fact, over the course of the last year, I've been involved in a research project with Dr. Laura Sokol, whom you have met at one of our conferences, and with Jeff Babb. They're both colleagues here at the University of Winnipeg, and we've been studying the topic of teacher stress and burnout in kindergarten to grade 12 schools. But I can tell you that stress is not selective, and teachers are not the only individuals experiencing challenges during this time. So the topic that I would like to discuss with you today extends this discussion to include the stress experienced by students in the post-secondary system. And I would like to share about a process that we are engaging in here at the University of Winnipeg to put organizational structures in place so that individual students have systemic supports as their context during their post-secondary educational experience. Before we begin, however, I would like to acknowledge that the University of Winnipeg is located in Treaty 1 territory, and the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Oji-Cree, the Dakota, and the Dene peoples, and also the homeland of the Métis Nation. Our water is sourced from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation, which is to our east in Treaty Number 3. And our hydroelectric power is sourced from Treaty 5, which is in northern Manitoba, which is in Treaty Number 5. And treaty acknowledgements are part of who we are, representing our past, our present, and our future. They are an important step in the process of truth and reconciliation, and in fact, of resilience in Canada. So let's talk more about resilience. According to the Mental Health Commission of Canada, this year, 2021, they noted that students are facing a rising number of mental health challenges, and post-secondary institutions are determining how best to support them. We are aware that 1 in 5 Canadians will experience a mental health illness each year. And by the time a Canadian reaches 40 years of age, 1 in 2 or 50% will have had a mental illness. Individuals aged 15 to 24 are more likely to experience mental illness than any other age group. And we also know that the number of students identified with mental health illnesses has more than doubled over the past 5 years. As a result of this, a new knowledge standard established on evidence-based practice has been developed to assist universities in improving the mental health and well-being of post-secondary students. And the standard supports 5 key outcomes. First, greater awareness of mental health and reduced stigma. Second, accessibility of supports both on and off campus, a 24-hour plan, if you will. Third, better resiliency skills that students can use not only at university, but also in work and in life. Fourth, improved safety in the university environment, whether that would be in person or virtual. And finally, greater student success, not only academic, but also social, emotional as well. And we know that our level of successful functioning can be seen as a balance between protective factors, which are resources, well-being strategies, and even privilege, and risk factors, which can include mental illness, life stress, systemic oppression, and prior experiences of trauma and abuse. And then there are the determinants of health, such as income, employment, education, literacy levels, and access to healthcare services. We recognize that when we increase well-being strategies and resources, this can have a positive influence on balance. It is also important to realize, however, that an increase in risk factors can have devastating effects on our levels of function, no matter how good our well-being may be. We also acknowledge that the pandemic is one example of a risk factor which has had devastating effects on individuals' mental health and well-being, in addition to decreasing access to resources and supports which have been traditionally available. As a result of this knowledge, in November 2020, the Board of Regents at the University of Winnipeg recommended that an operational task force be established composed of a wide range of stakeholders, staff, faculty, and students, to support mental health and well-being at our university. A student mental health advisory group was established with a mandate to develop, implement, and evaluate institutional action. The idea here was that the university community would benefit from the development of a framework to support psychological well-being and safety of students, with an end goal of helping students to achieve success. An important caveat recognized was that a variety of community and university partnerships would be essential to collaborate and address the multiple stressors faced by students, either from the pandemic or simply from life in general, while engaging in post-secondary education. The guiding principles of the action plan, as they are currently set out, are to include the following tenets. Whole campus initiative, not just for students in one faculty only. There is a focus on students specifically. Our staff and faculty have access to mental health supports and resources through the Human Resources Department and through a wellness specialist. Then there is a proactive and preventative evidence-based approach which is to be taken. And even though we are discussing an essential service, we must work within our fiscal boundaries. Sustainable funding must be essential, and we are looking to create a new structure and framework, but it needs to be enduring and exist post-pandemic. And there are functions that must be achieved involving mental health promotion and training. And finally, all programming after implementation must also experience ongoing monitoring, assessment, and evaluation. We recognize that given the work that needs to be achieved in this area, although many gains have been made, there still is stigma associated with mental illness, and much work needs to be done to counter that element. We acknowledge that mental illness or ill-being is associated with a broad range of adverse life experiences, including employment disruptions, strains in family and social relationships, poor health outcomes, housing and food insecurity, as well as vulnerability to criminal influences. And we confirm that mental health of post-secondary students has been and continues to be a societal challenge requiring multi-sectoral responses from governments, ministries of health, universities, student associations, as well as community agencies. So where do we begin? The National College Health Assessment, which is a division of the American College Health Association, periodically conducts research surveys to collect data about students' health habits, behaviors, and perceptions. A study that was conducted for a Canadian reference group in 2020 of November during the second wave of the pandemic revealed how Canadian post-secondary students were feeling about their physical and mental health. This survey information was used to inform the need for further organizational structures and planning in this area. On a side note, this coming fall of 2021, the National College Health Association will include the following items in what they are calling their COVID-19 survey. Items such as substance use and abuse, resiliency scales, psychological well-being, a questionnaire on food security, screening for serious mental illness, a loneliness scale, and suicide behaviors questionnaire. So the National College Health Association is updating and ensuring relevancy in each survey that they conduct. Staff from our Office of Institutional Analysis also used an appreciative inquiry approach in our advisory group meetings to determine organizational needs in mental health and well-being. And they will be developing an institutional audit to similarly determine strengths, gaps, and additional services required in this area at the University of Winnipeg. The next step will involve the development of that institutional action plan that I spoke with you about earlier to model organizational resilience and well-being. This document will describe the context and purpose for the University of Winnipeg based on the needs assessments conducted nationally, which are barometers to indicate concern, but also the appreciative inquiry approach and audit conducted by our own university team in institutional analysis. There will be a statement of vision or guiding purpose, followed by identified goals of focus with specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-oriented goals and objectives. And finally, there will be recommendations and a schedule for implementation and monitoring. Dr. Michael Unger notes that when we consider resilience, we need to be focused on the importance and interactions between individuals and their environments. We simply can't expect individuals to make changes to their strategies for well-being and increase access to resources and then just expect to move toward a more resilient population. Organizations rather have to have a critical role to play in this process, recognizing traditional systemic colonialism and oppression that has been perpetuated. And universities must also contribute structures and frameworks of support, such as the action plan that we've discussed, because they are major stakeholders of the determinants of health in the lives of post-secondary education students, especially in a post-pandemic world. And I look forward to sharing more about this action plan with you. That would be the University of Winnipeg Mental Health and Wellness Plan for Organizational Resilience, which will be coming out in the near future. Thank you. Enjoy your day.